Welcome to Deep Look, Ultiworld's weekly radio show about the current state of Ultimate. I am the host and the editor, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me is Ultiworld senior editor Keith Rayner on this Wednesday, September 27th, following the first weekend of regionals. Keith, we've got some big stories to talk about. We're also going to hit the lightning round for every region that played this weekend. And of course, we'll get you ready for North Central regionals and a postponed Mid-Atlantic, which we already talked about last week in the show. Keith, it's been an exciting week of Ultimate for sure. How are things up in Connecticut?
Well, we actually got some sunshine today, but I should also note that you can add this to my list of titles when you intro me, Charlie. But I've recently joined the board for Connecticut Ultimate, the Connecticut Ultimate Club. So I'm putting my money where my mouth is, and I'm helping out with my local Discord.
Good for you. First step towards becoming CEO of USA Ultimate.
Yeah, that's my long-term plan. I'll take the paycheck, but not the work.
Don't you want to go live in Colorado Springs?
It can't be that bad, right? It can't be that bad.
I think people say it's a nice city to live in. Anyway, let's talk about some crazy regional stuff. We're going to begin with the headlines. First and foremost, New York City Blueprint qualifying out of the Northeast men's. They beat Amherst Sprout in the game to go. After losing to Sprout in the first game of their tournament, they become the second New York City men's team to make nationals since the 90s. It has been a long, long time since we've had two men's teams from New York at the national championships. Pretty amazing stuff, Keith. They had to grind through a really tricky set of games, not only just to get into the bracket, but then once they lost to Dig in quarters, they had to beat Red Circus and then a very, very good Phoenix team, and then Sprout in succession in order to qualify, and they got it done.
Sprout? Not GOAT?
No GOAT.
Not Phoenix?
Not
Neither
goated.
in the game to go? I mean, I when we talked about this region last week, I think I said something effective like, I feel like we may be overrating the general depth of the region, and it's really going to come down to Phoenix and GOAT. And Blueprint used that as the bulletin board material, I guess, because they and Sprout were in the game to go, and no Canadian team to be found.
Yeah, pretty crazy regionals. And it looked for a second there like Blueprint was going to face similar fate to what they'd seen in the past. They lose their first game of the tournament. They're in a win or go home game, and they're down early, and they had to come back. Then they had to beat Tire Biz. I mean, they had to beat like all those teams that are in that conversation of like, could they make the game to go? They got there, and then they got the revenge game over Sprout. So, pretty awesome stuff. We're going to have a group of the Blueprint guys on in just a little bit, talk with them about their win. We also discussed this at length in our Rapid React show, Out the Back, that we did on Sunday night. If you become a subscriber at any level at ultiworld.com/subscribe, you can get the private RSS feed and get all of our bonus podcast episodes and listen to more regionals discussion and analysis from there. Keith, the other big story this weekend, Seattle Sockeye fails to qualify out of the Northwest in the men's division, and Eugene Darkstar actually beats Furious George in the semis to get in. It was a game to go. They played Rhino and lost again to Rhino in the final, but that meant that Furious and Sockeye played in the backdoor game, and Furious comes out on top. So Sockeye completely misses nationals. Darkstar did what I said they could do, Keith. They did it.
If only you'd picked him.
Put my money where my mouth was.
In the pick.
God dang it.
That said, it feels like a very symbolic move to not see Sockeye there. I mean, it's just like one of the brands you count on. That I don't think that this is likely, but I do think there is a chance. Like, could you imagine like Seattle Men's Ultimate just reforming next year? Like maybe what if Sockeye just doesn't even come back after this?
No.
I don't think they'll let the brand go. But there have been look at the tumult that's crossed through Boston over the years. Like,
But Boston had already gone through this many times. I mean, Sockeye is an iconic institutional
legacy.
team. There's no way they let that die. That would be
Look, they got
crazy.
look. They got a
Private
team
equity is going
full.
to fly in and buy up the brand if
They got a
if they let
team
it
full
go.
of young guys. These young guys are like, you know what? We're tired of these old dudes. We want to go to nationals. We're gonna start our own team, and they all go and form their own team, and that team eventually subsumes Sockeye. Like, you could be looking at the trigger point of those things happening. I'm just saying.
You're not wrong.
I'm not
Like,
betting
this
on
does
it.
happen.
This is a
does
ton of
happen.
conjecture.
This is what happened with Dig, right? This is literally what happened with Dig and kind of killing off Ironside. But Boston is fractious. I feel like Seattle is not that way. Seattle
That's
has
true.
more
That's true.
continuity in its teams. Boston, I mean, look at the mix scene. It's crazy. There's so many teams. They all dilute each other and then don't win. I don't get it. I feel like you would at some point would be like, hey, let's round up a couple of our teams and go win nationals. But you're not wrong. Like, missing nationals or making nationals can change the club scene permanently. And I don't think it will be a problem for Sockeye, but what's going to happen in the Northeast? We could see changes there, right? A lot of teams in a very dense area. Like, does this bring a boost to, I mean, we've seen it with Exist, right? They kind of coalesced and consolidated talent on that team. And Blueprint could perhaps do the same in the Metro New York area.
Oh my gosh, could you imagine the outrage if there were two good New York men's teams? Like,
I mean, New York is on its fast track to being the most hated city in the country.
I actually think Blueprint scored a big victory for them on that front. Like, that's a big likability score, Q score going up.
So there are plenty of other stories to get to, but we're going to hit them in our lightning round as we go through every region. So let us begin. Ring the bell. The lightning round begins now with the Great Lakes Women's Division. Chicago Nemesis beats Columbus rival 15-8 in the final to qualify. Chicago Machine defeats Grand Rapids Beacon. Yes, that's right. Grand Rapids Beacon in the final 15-9. And then Hybrid over Crocs in the final of mixed. Crocs gets through in the game to go. They beat Chicago Parlay 15-3. It was a very close final, 15-14, Hybrid over Crocs. Pretty much all to chalk, Keith. Although I guess Hybrid winning was not necessarily the obvious outcome.
No, you didn't even pick it. I'll go back to that. So not that obvious, but yeah, mostly I think we knew that felt like kind of a coin flippy final, and obviously the teams were pretty closely matched. But yeah, not much to speak of in the men's and women's divisions. I guess in men's, the top challenger was supposed to be Omen. They get knocked out eventually by Machine in quarters, but really they got put there by a loss to Beacon, who ended up in the finals. So that was probably the most notable result outside of that mixed final.
Shout out to Michigan Ultimate showing up. I don't really have much more to add on Great Lakes. Do you? Do any of these results tell you? We're gonna ask this about every region. Do any of these results tell you anything about nationals? About what you expect from these qualifying teams at nationals?
The Crocs Hybrid result is like I said the most interesting, but it is hard to know what it says because we still don't really have a great measure of Hybrid. I think that these are both going to be teams that can compete for quarters in the mix. That means you could win the title. It means you could lose all your games 15-0. I don't know. But I think that these teams clearly are both at very similar levels. And if you feel like Hybrid's for real, then Crocs is for real. So that's probably the biggest takeaway on the national scale.
I think they're both kind of mid, if you ask me. I'm not seeing the Hybrid Crocs like to semis narrative. For Machine and Nemesis, I learned nothing at regionals. No. Mid-Atlantic postponed. We'll come back to that. North Central scheduled for this weekend. We'll come back to that. We move to the Northeast. 9 teams qualifying. Boston Brute Squad, top team in women's. They beat Bent 14-11 in the final. Bent beat Sixers 12-8 in semis to qualify, and then lost to Brute in the final. Sixers beating Iris 15-11 in the game to go. On the men's side, Pony over Phoenix in semis to qualify, and then beat Dig 15-11 in the final. Dig beat Goat 15-11 in semis to get into that final and qualify, and New York Blueprint over Sprout 14-11 in the game to go after running off a ton of breaks late in the game. Mixed side, Boston Slow wins the region. They beat Sprocket 12-11 in the final. Sprocket beat Exist in semis, a little upset there. Exist easily defeating Ithaca Townies 15-7 in the game to go. Keith, obviously we talked about Blueprint, but what else did you learn from the Northeast?
Charlie, you know what I learned from the Northeast? Canada's down bad.
Oh,
I feel like they've been a punching bag on the show as of
brutal.
late. But whew, not much to be excited about for the Canadians. I feel bad for Huck and A. I feel like it's going to be they're going to be playing the dirge over there. It's going to be sad times on that show. But yeah, I had Sixers winning the women's division. Obviously they finished third. Slow, surprising winner in mixed. I think we were a little worried about Exist. Exist started out that game against Townies, I think, trailing. Like, we were like, is Exist going to totally miss nationals? And then they obviously turned it around and absolutely dominated in that game by the end of it. But for a second there, it felt like Exist might miss altogether. But three strong women's teams. I still I watched the tape. There's a Sixers Bent game, not the game to go, but when they matched up prior. That we got in the morning. Sixers still looks good, so I think that probably means that Ben and Brute Squad Brute Squad in particular is really good. I think we should be really high on them still. Ben, love to see them deliver. This is a team that we express doubt about all the time. They came out and they delivered. And Sixers, I still think they're going to be a threat to make the bracket. So I think the Northeast is just strong in the women's division.
Very strong, and Bent to me passed the test of what I wanted to see from them, which is not only getting to the final. Now, sure, would you love to see them beat Brute if you were like, hey, this team is like super legit and could win a championship? Sure, but that was never what I was expecting from them. But I do think that they started to take steps towards being the team that we thought they could be. Beating Sixers not on Universe or something like that, but like soundly beating them 12-8, that is a great win. And Sixers has proven to be a really good team. So I think Bent, time to get back on the hype train if you're a Bent fan, because there's definitely a chance this team could make a push to be in a game in quarters where they threaten to win and go to semis. It's going to depend on the team that they match up with, but really like them to quarters at this point.
No idea what to do with Northeast mixed. I don't know what I'm going to do with these teams come nationals, picking time. They feel like they could be all over the map.
Exist seems troubled. This is not the results of a team that's going to go back to a deep bracket run at nationals.
Mm-mm.
On the men's side, kind of went as expected. Pony clearly the best team,
except for one
Dig very solid. Yeah, I mean, sure, there were question marks about that third bid and who was going to take it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't necessarily know that I think Blueprint's going to go and get a bunch of wins at nationals. I think, they're a team that could maybe win 1 to 2 games before consolation. I guess
Pony
just
and Dig clearly
game.
in another league.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah.
Blueprint
could finish third in their pool and lose in pre-quarters. That's kind of where I see that team ceiling. And who knows what they could do in consolation. Okay, on we go. Northwest, another 9-bid region. Vancouver Traffic crushes Utah Dark Sky 15-7 in semis and then beats Riot 15-12 in the final. Riot over Schwa in semis. That was a surprise. Schwa easily winning the game to go, but surprised to see them finish third. In the men's, Rhino Slam crushes Sockeye in semis and then beats Darkstar in the final. Eugene Darkstar over Furious in semis 15-13 to qualify. And Furious George just shatters Sockeye 15-8 in the game to go. I mean, just an absolutely brutal end of the season for Sockeye. In the mixed, Seattle Mixtape gets the regional win. They beat Red Flag in semis and then BFG 14-13 in the final. Those two teams are what a battle between these two excellent championship level teams. BFG easily beat Moondog in semis, and Red Flag got over Moondog 15-9 in the game to go. Keith,
I just want to say that 15-8 Furious over Sakai just underscores how painful it was. I'm pretty sure Sakai was up 7-5 in that game.
Yeesh.
The wheels fell off. the fins fell off. It was a tough watch as Furious just like steamrolled away. Is Rhino back, or is Rhino just Undertaker gift their way back up, or is the Northwest just not that good?
Where I think the Northwest is not that good.
I'm kind of worried that that's what we're learning here.
Like, okay, I mean, like Rhino did nothing wrong this weekend. They won games by big margins. They were the best team coming in, and they looked like the best team, and I still think they're the best team. The problem is, them being the best team in the Northwest isn't that impressive.
Yeah.
They're going to have to step up their game a level at Nationals.
Nice results for Traffic. I think it's possible all three of these teams could be in quarters, but it's hard for me to see a lot above that opportunity for them.
Where are you with Riot right now?
I have tried to. This is a good result for Riot. I think I expected them to finish third at this tournament. The beginning of the year, I was feeling pretty good about them. With all the youth on the team, that felt like they had a lot of room to grow, that they could coalesce at the end of the year. And I still think that's possible. Getting a 15-12 win over Schwa is good. They lost both their games to Traffic reasonably. It wasn't like they were completely out of it. So I think that if their young players can really bring it together, they could be an upset team. I think that's definitely possible, but it's just hard to imagine them being consistent in when they need it the most.
All right, we move on to the South Central. In women's, Molly Brown over Small Batch 12-5 in the final. Men's, Double Wide gets the upset over Johnny Bravo 12-8. Pretty substantial win. Johnny Bravo over Hip 15-12 in the game to go. And Shame beats Love Tractor 15-9 in the final.
No close games for Shame. We talked about that this is a deep region, but that they were a clear step ahead, and that came to pass. Shame defending their number one spot. What do we think? We think they're probably the favorite to take the number one seed going into Nationals. Double Wide and Bravo. I think that's the big takeaway here. That Double Wide game was not 12-8 is representative. Double Wide looked in control of that game basically from start to finish. Bravo has had a couple moments this year, but you start to worry about their overall consistency level. I think after last season, everyone's going to be totally petrified about writing them off. No one will have the guts to write off Bravo. So
Keith,
maybe this means Double Wide's good.
I have the guts.
I don't believe it.
I'm writing them off.
I say it now, but
I'm saying it now.
When we come to Nationals picks, I want to hear you run it back.
I'll run it back.
Okay.
This is not a championship team. It's a miracle they won last year. I'm sorry. I don't know how that happened. They don't know how it happened. Nobody knows how it happened. Truck was the best team in the country, and they blew it. And congratulations to Bravo. It was an epic run, but they just don't. They don't have that team in them again this year. They just don't. Losing to Double Wide is not what a team that's going to win Nationals does. I'm sorry, and I say that knowing that regionals can have weird results because it's like NFL divisional games. You just know the opponent so well that you can outperform your level. But I'm sorry, this Bravo team doesn't have it this year.
They were struggling to put away Hip. I mean, it wasn't like Hip ever was in front or really threatening to do so, but Hip was there, 2 goals, 1 goal difference pretty much the whole game. They just could not break away until the very end. So there's some reasons to be concerned about what Bravo's capable of right now.
We move to the Southeast. Raleigh Phoenix over Atlanta Ozone 15-9 in the final. In men's, Ring upsets Chain 15-13 in the final after beating RDU 15-11 in semis. Chain was beat Kennesaw Delirium 15-12 in semis. Nice showing for Kennesaw Delirium, by the way. RDU over Cash Crop 15-9 in the game to go. So kind of went as expected. Cash Crop had some buzz, but RDU, we said, Keith, it was probably the better team, and they proved to be the better team. And then in the mixed, Nashville Shine comes away with the win, and they beat Charlotte Storm in the final 15-7. Storm getting a huge universe point upset over Space Force, and couldn't quite get the job done, though, as Shine qualifies for Nationals.
Shocking to see Space Force go down in semis. We said that it was possible for them to lose, but I was really surprised that they lost to Storm and didn't even make it to the finals. But Storm looked like the real deal. I think they just ran out of gas against a strong Shine team who gets in now, and what we knew was going to be a really competitive regionals. It looked pretty good doing so. I'm not surprised by RDU. I never bought the Cash Crop 2 hype. You do not want to buy teams that get hyped like 3 days before regionals. That's not the move. I picked Ring to beat Chain. That's not surprising to me. I think that I heard it was pretty contentious, that matchup. I heard there's some I don't want to say bad blood, but definitely some feistiness between the two teams, and that played out at regionals.
Come on. I mean, that's one of the classic battle.
Yeah.
Those teams play in the finals of regionals every year.
And they've got a little bit of old school salt to them too. There's a little bit of like the left. They bring out the 2000s in each other, I think, a little bit. And Phoenix, comfortable, but Quincy Booth show, I heard.
Yeah, Quincy Booth was balling
for Ozone. Keep an eye out.
Sophomore in college next year.
We're hearing the hype. The hype is out there. Revenge tour.
We heard she was easily the best player on Ozone. That's pretty impressive as like a 19-year-old.
Heard she put Dawn Colton on a poster.
Woo.
So yeah, that's a good acclaim.
Here's an interesting note, Keith. The way that the seeding is going to be done at Nationals this year, they're going to rerun the rankings after regionals, and that's it. Then the top 4 teams in the rankings with no adjustments will be put into the top 4 seeds, and then the buckets 5 through 8, 9 through 12, 13 through 16 will be randomized into the pools. So the interesting thing is that you have some teams who maybe got upset at regionals that are still going to get one of those top 4 seeds. It looks like right now, based on FrisbeeRankings.com projections, that Chain is going to hold on to that 4th and final spot as a 1 seed in the pool.
I thought that upset might knock them out, because I thought that winning the region would have given them a shot at a 1 seed.
But it doesn't look like it. Ring did move up into 6th place, but they're still, according to this, about 30-ish points behind Chain. Now, you never know. There's going to be more effects this weekend, but it's very unlikely that it's going to make up a 30-point difference. And they're not going to flip anything for regional results. So I think the same thing is true for Bravo, for instance, who's ahead of Double Wide. And Bravo right now is the 8, Double Wide the 9, which means, Bravo will be in the higher bucket, which is an advantage. Interesting note.
Something to keep an eye on as we get into that process in full.
Okay, we move on to the Southwest final region here in our lightning round. Women's San Francisco Fury over Flipside 15-13 in the final after beating Nightlock 15-5. Flipside over LOL in semis to qualify. Pretty easy win there. Nightlock over Wildfire 14-13 in a very controversial universe point win. Men's Revolver over Zizova 15-9 in the final. Zizova knocking out Condors. Yikes. Mixed Mischief over Lawless 15-8 in the final. And Lawless beat Sunshine 15-10 in the game to go. Polar Bears misses Nationals for the first time since 2017.
Knocked out by Sacramento Tower. Not even one of the other 3 teams that people had in contention, and by people I mean us. But Tower sends Polar Bears packing. Shock. One of the biggest shocking results for me. Maybe the most shocking individual result of the weekend. That dramatic women's division game to go. That Universe Point is viewable. We have that up. You can head over to our YouTube channel or our social media and see that Universe Point for yourself. But causing some stir. You got a very fast stall call on the game-winning score for Wildfire. What would have been the game-winning score for Wildfire. Then it gets sent back. Then there's continuation rule. I don't even know if it was applied correctly, but some sort of continuation rule issue. So they think they won again. Then they unwin. Then there's another fast stall call where somebody says there's a whistle that was blown on another field that caused them to stop. I mean, like, this is a catastrophe. And then Nylock scores to win it. So, like, sure, Nylock did their part. They scored. Like, Wildfire should have stopped them from scoring. But crazy series of events.
What's your take here, Keith? Do you think that Wildfire got jobbed?
I sure do. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure that anybody has felt like those stall counts were 10 seconds in duration. And if one was like also caused by the confusion of a whistle, that just like adds reason to be unsure about it rather than like stick heavily to it. Yeah. I'm never one to like blame it on the refs. It's just not my style. Like that was the 27th point. There were 26 other ones. But tough ending for Wildfire, especially the emotional part of like thinking you had won the game and having it go back.
So brutal. And
the first stall call is like kind of egregious.
Thinking you won it twice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It just feels bad, doesn't it? Because basically what happened is there was a stall call. The throw goes up to the next person who's in power position and throws a huck to the end zone for the score. And the stall call was illegitimate, and yet it goes back to the previous person. Although the teams, and Wildfire actually tweeted this out before deleting it, the teams could have agreed that there was no impact of the stall call on the outcome of the point, the possession. Now, I don't think anybody in their right mind actually thinks that Nightlock in that situation should be like, yeah, had no effect. You win. Like, realistically, we all have been in the situation where the call happened a previous throw and it has to go back. But it feels so wrong for a bad, overruled by the observer stall call to end up still going back, and then you turn it over because there was a weird whistle situation from a soccer game on an adjacent field. It's just a terrible situation for Wildfire. I mean, it's the kind of thing you think about. They're going to be talking about that in like 20 years when they have like a little reunion lunch. It's brutal.
Oh, I mean, you can see it on our camera. I mean, it's just like absolutely stunned Wildfire players. Like watching that Nylock score there, and it's quiet. How often does a team make it to nationals, win the game to go? It's just like
it's because they knew they jobbed them, Keith. I mean, let's be honest here. They had opportunities to not do the things that happened there, not make the bad stall call, not say that the stall should be held up when everybody on the field stops for the whistle. Like the acknowledgement there should be, oh yeah, that was really weird whistle. Like I'll come in stall 6. I don't know. I'm not saying that the rules were explicitly broken at any point here in an intentional way, but
yeah.
It's still, there's a reason that everybody was like silent afterwards, and it's because everybody knows that that's not how it should have gone down.
Super weird.
So there you go. Do you learn anything from the Southwest region about what we could see at nationals?
Flipside's good. I think that they're closer to being still in the contender tier than they are in the also ran tier. We were sleeping on Mischief. They're the one team that between the two of us we didn't pick to make it.
Crazy.
And they made that look pretty dumb. I think that they stand as good a chance as anybody, because I think Lawless looks pretty solid too. So the fact that they got punked by Mischief, I think speaks highly of what Mischief could be doing by the time that we're sitting down for our Nationals recap time.
Deep region, but mixed.
The
Feels
Southwest,
like they probably
yeah,
should have had 3 bids.
Living up to their reputation.
Yeah. All right. So we've got some great interviews coming up. First up, we're going to talk with 3 players from Blueprint about their victory. And then we're going to hear from a Dark Star player about their win in the Northwest. So don't go anywhere. Back-to-back interviews coming up. Joining us now on Deep Look are three members of New York Blueprint who will be making their Nationals debut. It's the first time a second New York City men's team has made Nationals in like 30 years. Guys, welcome. Patrick Stegemeller, Evan Ma, one of the founders and a captain. Pat's a captain. And Gary Delia joins us here on Deep Look. First of all, huge congratulations. What an amazing thing to be the team that finally qualifies the second men's team out of New York. I'm sure you're all on cloud nine. It's been a couple days since you closed it out over Sprout. How is your week going, and what has this been like so far?
It's been incredible, obviously. I think the feeling itself is incomparable to anything I've ever felt before. It really did feel like the best day of my life. And it's been really strange coming back to the real world where people expect me to do my job and live my normal life when the best thing in the world has ever happened to me. And I think the outpouring of love and support from our community has felt truly incredible. And yeah, no better feeling.
I want to hear more. I mean, it's a Sunday, and people probably have work on Monday, but I'm sure you want to celebrate. Patrick, did the team do anything? Do you have any stories? Like what happened after all of the chaos finally settled down briefly?
Well, yeah, we hung out at the fields for, I don't know, 10 to 14 hours afterwards. Unclear time really started to lose meaning to me. We went and ate at, it was like a weird, like, we heard that like some Bent and Exist people were there, and we're like, well, now that we're elites, I guess we can hang out with them. At some like farm stand after that had like ice cream and like fried clams. It's really all kind of a blur. And then we drove back to New York and then went to a bar in Brooklyn where we partied pretty hard for a Sunday night. A lot of like Blueprint alums were Venmoing people like $50 or whatever for drinks, and we spent all of it. And then had to go to work. Unfortunately, my voice is like mostly back right now, but I had to do oral arguments on Tuesday.
It's still a little.
It was way worse on Tuesday. So no, it's been great.
Gary, you caught the game-winning score. As the disc was in the air, like, what's going through your mind in that moment?
If I remember correctly, it was a backhand to my blind side, and the biggest thing going through my mind was, "Oh, we could win it! Oh my God! Please do not trip over your feet and fall right now."
and
sorry,
go on.
As soon as I pulled the disc out of the air, it was just an immense sense of relief and just joy. I turned around, I saw Pat sprinting at me, and I was just so happy and elated. It wasn't a thing that I imagined could happen up until as I was grabbing the disc out of the air. So it was just incredible.
Evan, you've been with this team since the beginning, and like, I would love to just kind of go through the weekend a little bit. You start the tournament with a loss to Sprout. Mm-hmm. And then, I'm sure you're preparing in your minds for having to play GOAT in the game to go. It doesn't end up being that. It ends up being Sprout again. So, like, what does the path through this weekend look like? And then we can talk about the game itself, because that was its own crazy thing. But, you start with the loss. That's got to feel really tough after the season that you've had and the expectations that you had for the weekend.
Yeah, I think that we tried to take a holistic view of the tournament going into it, think about all the different paths that we could take. But I think it's undeniable that we spent a lot of time and energy thinking about that game, and that players on the team were really dialed in for the first Sprout game. And so losing that, we really hit a low energy point following that. And it was tough to come back up. And, Alibi was giving it to us in those first couple of points of that game. And we really needed to dig deep and pull ourselves together for the Tire Biz game that came. And I think that speaks to the work that we've put in all season. Right. I think that we are a team that really prioritizes culture and support and love in really meaningful ways. And it was hard to pull ourselves out, but we did it, and we were able to do that together. And, you know, after the Tire Biz game, it felt like we could do anything. You know, we had come back from such a low place. We were riding high. I thought we played a pretty great game against Dig, a pretty great first half against them at least. And I think everyone felt really confident after that moment. And, you know, Blueprint has a history, undeniably, of falling short of what we think our potential is at regionals. You know, I could tell you pretty easily the teams that have knocked us off in the past, and seeing that we were potentially playing those teams on Sunday, that we were getting a chance against the teams that had knocked us out in 2018 and 2019, you know, that was an incredible, exhilarating feeling to have. And I think when we woke up on Sunday morning, we didn't necessarily have expectations for where the day would end, but we knew that every game that we played against these teams would be competitive and that we had a chance in all of them. And I think that that belief really carried us through in really meaningful ways.
Pat, as Evan mentioned, you know, knowing those games were going to be competitive, they certainly wound up being. The path to the final was a bit of a tightrope walk. What were the emotional ups and downs of playing a day where every game was so meaningful and also so heavily contested?
It was so both overwhelming, but also numb kind of at the same time, because you're just in it. And, you know, you hear about teams having runs through, you know, the NCAA tournament bracket where they're like winning all these close games and scoring buzzer beaters or whatever. And that's happening over the course of, you know, 2 or 3 weeks. And that happened to us over the course of like 4 hours. You know, in our first game on Sunday, we were down 8-6 at half to Red Circus, who, like Evan said, is the team that knocked out Blueprint in 2018. And we had to come back from that. Then we played, honestly, one of the most unhinged games of my entire life against Phoenix in the backdoor semi. Like that, Phoenix is really good. They were really, really good this year. They just come off of taking it to Pony. It was 15-12 in the semi, which was like game to go. You know, they were 3 points short against Pony of making nationals themselves. And, you know, we have a thing on Blueprint where the number 8 is really important to us, because that's where we try to be. Because, you know, like 8 out of 10 is sort of you're in flow, you're able to be with your teammates, you're cool, you have calm intensity. 9, you're being kind of a lunatic. 10 is this sort of unsustainable blast off into the stratosphere that, you know, the human body is only capable of sustaining for seconds at a time. And we kind of had to find 10 in that Phoenix game. And we did. And people who, you know, are guys I love and have played with for years were doing stuff I'd never seen them do before in that game, and just making unbelievable play after unbelievable play. And then all of a sudden we're in the game to go against Sprout, and it felt really great to have a second chance at them after what was like a pretty tough first game in the weekend, where I think we all felt like we kind of left something on the bone. So just getting a chance to get back at them in the game to go was really sweet.
Were you glad to see Sprout and not Goat?
You know, my first reaction was a little disappointment, because I had in my mind, like, we're going to beat 3 Canadian teams in a row to go to nationals. But then, yeah, I think because, you know, they were a team that we had prepared the most for heading into the weekend, because they were the only team we knew we were going to play.
Right.
So I think we had all of our matchups figured out against them. We had played a tight game against them earlier. So once the sort of initial shock of, oh my God, we're in the game to go wore off, it was sort of like, okay, we know we can beat this team, even though they're really good and, you know, have guys who have won national championships before on their roster. But I think we all felt like we were prepared to win this game.
Gary, tell us about the game itself. You start by going up early, but they come back and take the lead, right? I haven't had a chance to like sit and watch the entire flow of the game score, and there's obviously no stats. I mean, come on, stats in Ultimate. So what was the game like? How did it unfold over the course of the game? And you end up winning by 3, like fairly comfortably in the end, but it was not a comfortable game, I imagine.
That's a great question. I honestly do not remember the beginning to middle of that game at all. It all was just happening. It was so tense. Every moment mattered. What I do definitely remember is just the break train that we went on at the end to just take it from them, which was obviously really important. But the actual mechanics of the game, I just remember staring out there and watching, even on the points that we lost, our guys just make incredible efforts and go out there and say, hey, we really, really want this. And I think the biggest thing that I remember is just how much New York was on the sideline, supporting, lifting us up. It felt like a home game. It felt like a game that, like, if there was a chance we were going to win, they were going to help lift us there.
I mean, yeah, Chris Bartoli had kind of a salty tweet that, like, the Boston and Massachusetts sidelines, like, weren't there, or they were just sitting quietly while the New York teams were going crazy. You say it sounds like a home game. Like, what do you think explains that?
I think we have we have a team that has, like, a lot of grassroots connections in our community. We are all, so many of us are coaches. So many of us play league. So many of us are doing things in our community to uplift Ultimate and to show we care about other people, and we show out for other teams. We support other teams when they're in their good spot. So I think everyone was incredibly excited and just happy to see the good guys up there.
Yeah, and Gary is, like, maybe the best example of that on our team. Gary is, who served on the board at Disc NY. He commissions Fall League, which is sort of like, like the league in Brooklyn. He puts so much time and effort on the field and off the field into the community. And he played on Unlimited Swipes, which is a mixed team. Basically almost all of us have, like, as Gary said, like, roots around where it's like we didn't all play on D1, powerhouse colleges and then immediately get picked up into big programs. Like, almost all of us have played on, like, a wacky assortment of other teams before, or at the very least, like, in leagues and stuff. So we just had all these relationships that culminated in that game with the sidelines there, which was, like, the most special thing in the entire world.
Could I maybe say something too about the game itself that I thought, which is that I think all season, our D-line has really done a great job of, like, getting teams numbers over the course of a game and applying relentless pressure. And, we think about sort of putting cracks in other teams' armor, right, that are going to, like, spread and that we're going to find our way in. And I think that having this really, challenging, rewarding regular season and being able to rely on a D-line that went 16 people deep, really allowed us to take a game that was back and forth and contentious and that we were down at half and feel confident still, feel like we could break them. Maybe not in the way that we ended up doing so, but that we could get our breaks on them back. And, so I just wanted to shout out our D-line and the incredible belief and intensity that they brought all year that really, it manifested on the field in that game.
Well, Evan, you're talking about the bigger picture of the season and the work over the course of the year. How much of this fits into the goals that Blueprint set at the beginning of the year, and when did it start to feel like a potential reality that Blueprint could be qualifying for the club championships?
Well, for me, the reality was, I think, at something like 12-11, and personally, before that moment, I hadn't really considered it an actual real life possibility. It's a cliche, but Blueprint's always been a team that's been process focused. We have three of our own words, right? Desire, us, and process, or D up, as we like to say. And so I don't know, at no point during the beginning of the season did leadership say, this is our goal. It's to be in this game. I'll speak frankly, it certainly wasn't saying we are intending to make nationals. But I think that we had this meeting at sectionals, the Saturday night of sectionals, where hosted by Jacob Cowan and Jeff Voss, who are two, fantastic members of our team, who, they asked us to confront our fears and our goals and, really dig deep in about the goals that, maybe we don't say out loud, or the goals that we have that we don't think are realistic. And, it turns out when you spend a lot of your life playing competitive Ultimate, and being on a team or being on teams where you might not be getting that chance, you still hold on to that goal. And so I think what we realize is that a lot of us throughout this whole year, we're holding on to that. And we're able to, to rise to the occasion when it happened. But yeah, I think just over the course of the season, it was all process all the time. It wasn't until the week before regionals that we said the time to grind is done and the time to celebrate is here, right? We were tinkering, we were working on the small parts of our game until that week. And so, yeah, shout out to the process.
There are not so many teams. There's not that many first-time nationals teams per year, period. I think there's 3 this year. And it's especially rare to have a second team from a city, especially in the men's division, where it's almost just doesn't happen. I mean, it happens once in a great while, but the second teams are often, from like the suburbs, or it's it's like Amherst in Boston or something like that. So I think that's a particularly interesting part of this whole thing, because you do have a lot of players who have been on teams that are good. They're good players. They've probably not been to college nationals or to club nationals before. So, how do you take all that part of this in? Because, Pat, you were texting me earlier this week that there's like a crazy amount of stuff that you have to do when you make nationals, along with all the travel planning and everything else. You got to pay the bid fees, et cetera, et cetera. So like, just what has that been like? Because you don't really think about all of that and like actually going until you're there when you're a team like Blueprint.
Yeah, I remember waking up Monday morning and putting into our coaches and captains channel on our Slack of like, so do we like practice more now, or like what happens? And yeah, our 2 coaches, John Reynolds and Ryan Thompson, who deserve an immense amount of credit for our success this season, and Evan came over to my apartment at like noon and like picked up some sandwiches from Court Street Grocers, shout out. And we all sort of just like sat around and were like, okay, what do we what do we do now? Yeah, it turns out it's a lot of work that you have to do right away. But our team is full of try-hard psychos who always need a task or a job of some sort. So they've all pretty much jumped in with both feet on, figuring out fundraising and, putting a roof over our heads while we're there, and stuff like that. We did have to sort of like decide if we're New York or Brooklyn Blueprint, because we've sort of existed in a quantum superposition between the two up until now. Yeah, it's I think it speaks to how much we really were not like expecting this to happen, even if we believed that it could, or even if we were using it as motivation. Like, we had no plan for the day after regionals, and now we're figuring it out.
Yeah, I think every time I see, like nationals logistics written down, it still doesn't feel real to me. And I sort of have to force myself to snap back and be like, no, you have real tasks to accomplish right now. But it's also nice to just see those words and just sort of bask in it for another moment, because it still doesn't feel quite real.
So let's look ahead to nationals. What kind of aspirations do you have? I mean, I've already seen it online, and it's totally understandable if this is how you feel. House money, happy to be there. All of the cliches that we hear about teams that are, not expected, right? Not bid earners that make their way to nationals. You're probably going to be a bottom seed in a pool. They're going to do the random draw. So we'll see where we're at with all of that next week. And so what kind of expectations do you have for what you're going to be able to do when you're there?
Yeah, I think, as Pat mentioned, we're a team of try-hard sickos who, for us, the joy is in playing, good boy ultimate, right? It's in running our sets, looking at the reset early, right? Throwing nice flat throws that are going to make our coach John smile and, give us a little bit of begrudging praise. And, we're happy to be there, obviously, and we're all delighted to be there, but we also want to win. We didn't get this far by just showing up and being happy to like throw frisbees around and do cool things that maybe are going to be on film. We come into these games knowing who we are, knowing the work that we've put in, and sure, this will be a caliber of tournament that a lot of us aren't used to, but until the score is done, until the game is over, I think all of us are intent to compete in all of these games as hard as we can. And wouldn't it be sweet to upset a couple people, to make a little more noise?
Well, I think the final question that I have is, there's a large contingent of NYU players on this team, and you couldn't have done it without them. I know that, but can we get some NYU specific shout outs? Who stepped up big from the Purple Haze squadron on this team? I forget how many guys are even on this team from NYU, but
yeah. So Charlie, you may or may not be familiar with Max Cohen and Sam Pollock. They are both original members of Blueprint. They both have played on our O-line, I think, every single year. And Max, he's got the little towel. If you're watching the footage ever, he wears a hat, throws a lot of silky breaks. He threw one to Sam Pollock in that game. And it was about the millionth time that we've seen them do that together. So I would expect nothing less. I think there's only one way that those guys know how to play Ultimate, and that's Good Boy Ultimate. Got Jesse Gahn, another original founding member of the team, who is less of a Good Boy Ultimate player and much more of a dog, who will come steal the disc from you and play with more intensity than anyone you've ever met. It's a little intimidating sometimes, but he's an absolute dog. Joseph Copeland and Chris Bond, or Joseph was the coach, sorry. Joseph was the coach of NYU. Chris Bond was the recent player, but both of them count for this purpose. And Owen Marshall went to grad school and played on NYU for a year. So a little less Haze, but still pretty Haze. And he'll be, anchoring D-line offense as per usual.
I do want to shout out Chris Bond, who just graduated from NYU, not just because he was a awesome addition to our O-line as a super young guy playing his first club season at this level, but also because he had to spend 20 hours in the ER after regionals because he was screaming so much from the sideline that he tore his esophagus or something. So he'll be good for nationals. He's fine, but that's what Blueprint is all about right there. Thank you, Chris Bond.
Well, congratulations, guys. It's very exciting, and the energy in New York City is at an all-time high right now for Frisbee. So, and it's not just about Pony and Ben. So, congratulations once again, and we'll see you guys in San Diego.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks so much.
Joining us now on Deep Look is captain from Eugene Darkstar. Dan Baumgartner joins us as they just qualified for nationals. They didn't even have to do it from the game to go. Dan, congratulations. How are you feeling about getting to nationals?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're super psyched. It was fun to do it the straightforward way, do it in semis, so we didn't have to stress about it and have to go win a couple more. Plus, weather got a lot worse too, so that was nice to avoid that rainy game at the end of the day. But yeah, no, we're definitely super psyched about it. It's I don't know if people are familiar, but Darkstar's been around a really long time. I think it's something like 50 years. It's in the 70s is when it started, and in some form or another, it's been going the whole time. So we're definitely super psyched to be the first ones to go. We've worked super hard for this, and not just we being the guys on the team right now, but the guys that kind of laid the groundwork a while ago for for that. And the guys have been laying the groundwork since the 70s, So yeah, it's really awesome to be the ones to go.
Yeah, I mentioned this in the rapid reacts for regionals, but Henry Callahan played on Darkstar. It's a team with a lot of history. I got to ask you, though, it's really interesting to see Darkstar make nationals because it's been a talented team for a long time. And we've seen Darkstar maybe punch above the weight class for a while. But just a few years ago, the team is in a position where maybe they can beat Rhino, and they throw the game intentionally because they don't want to be a top select team or whatever and be forced to play the Triple Crown Tour events. And now you turn around and you're winning in semis to get your bid and playing in the final of Northwest Regionals. What has changed? Because it just feels like the tone of the way that you guys approach the season is completely different now.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely been some change within the team. I would say that there are some guys on the team now who were on that team that crawled around on the ground and dropped the disc and stuff in that game to go. Which I love those guys to death because it's the guys that were there. A lot of them were there when I came in. A lot of them are still there. Like I said, I mean, there's I can't really speak for them for why exactly that's what they wanted to do. I do kind of get it. It's kind of a bit of the culture of Dark Stars to goof around, have fun. In terms of that decision, I think that it is something we talked about, knowing our personality, knowing what we prioritize as a team. We did talk about that at the start of this year, saying we think we've got a shot. We have a really, really good team. If we get in that position, what do we want to do? And we unanimously decided we're pushing for it, we're going for it, we want to go to nationals this year, we think it's our year. So like I said, can't really speak for what those guys were what factored into that decision for them, but we definitely felt like this is the one. It is pretty funny in my opinion, and I'm sure not everyone agrees with that. But it's definitely a Dark Star move, and we wanted to do it our way and kind of keep some of that same culture, but definitely decided we wanted to push for it this year.
You could have tried to run it back in the final. At that point you'd already locked it up. You're playing Rhino again. You could have just given them one.
There were discussions. There were discussions about it, but we just wanted to have a fun game. Those are our friends, a lot of them. So we just thought we'd mess around a little bit, have a good game. They play well no matter what. So it was fun to go get some good run in with them, I guess.
There aren't a lot of first year teams each year that make it to nationals, and even more rare, I think, for a team that has such a lengthy history to get that qualification in. How do you feel like having a team that's got such a long and rich history affects the performance of this team now and your experience this year?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a good question because I think there are certain elements of Ultimate that have kind of passed on for a long time from its founding, but I think the kind of that culture of Ultimate and the core personality of a lot of guys that end up playing, guys and girls and whoever that end up playing Ultimate that stick around from back then when it was first created. And there's a lot of kind of fun and goofing around and I don't know, being a little more weird, a little unique compared to other sports that really stays. And I think Darkstar definitely has those genes definitely still on the team. I think that like I said, you got guys goofing around on the ground instead of going to nationals a few years ago. It's a team that really carries that legacy on pretty well, I think. And a couple of years ago, we kind of got in trouble for making our own jerseys and instead of having printed ones early in the season at some tournaments. So it just, those things stick around with this team, and I think that has helped us to attract the right people and people who are going to fit that culture well while being great people who aren't going to cause a division. And I think that really helps a team rise from that kind of middle to being up at the top basically and pushing for that nationals bid, because it's not easy to just do in a year or anything like that. This has been a long time coming for this team, and so being able to attract the right people who are going to really put in the work as well as fit the culture for the team is really important. Guys like Scott Radlauer, who I want to shout out because he had an absolutely monster game in that game, that game to go that we won. The guy's just incredible, and he's someone who came up from he was playing for Condors before. He played a season of mixed and then came over and played with us now that he's here in Oregon, and he's just unbelievable. And so it's super awesome to bring in guys like him who really help take us to that next level.
Well, you had a very interesting season. Your only losses coming to really good teams: Rhino, Revolver, Furious. You had a loss to Sockeye. You also beat Sockeye as kind of like the cornerstone win that in the preview show last week, I was talking about. Darkstar is a legitimate threat to take one of these bids. Now, I have to say, I did not expect you to do it heads up against Furious in the semis, but that is what happened. Now, they beat you 13-9 back in June, and I know that's a long time ago, but how did you turn that matchup around and ultimately qualify fairly straightforwardly? I mean, you lose to Rhino twice, but otherwise take care of business.
Yeah, I mean, we I'd say at the start of the season, we're still kind of getting going. It's easy to kind of get your wires crossed a little bit early on, but it's stuff that we were able to iron out. And it's also, I think with Furious, I know that they play that team. That's a core of a group of guys that play together a lot, right? And they've been playing together for a while at the start of the season. So they're always they're a very kind of well-oiled machine, and they definitely perform well the whole season. But we have a little more growth to do from the start of the season to the end of the season, I think. And I think we were able to kind of, put that together. We were able to really iron out the roles for each individual guy on the team. And I think that really helped us by the end of the season is we had a lot of buy-in from everybody and people, there's awesome guys who saw their roles reduced. Like I was saying earlier, when we bring in new guys, you have to fit into wherever you can on the team to do, whatever's the most helpful for the team. And I really want to shout out all of our guys who maybe their role was reduced, they became a practice player, or they just played less often or whatever. And having that deep roster is really, really important for, pushing for that next level, I guess. And so being able to fit into those new roles and really execute as a whole team is what I think got us there.
The roster that you have is also interesting to me because you have these kind of these veterans, these old dogs, as my brother would say. These the players who've been around the block, and then you also have these young players who you recruited, guys who are still in college or just fresh out of college or whatnot. What was it like trying to get everybody on the same page and ready to compete at a high level when they have such different backgrounds?
Yeah, no, I think that is an interesting question because like you're saying, we've got guys who are pushing 40 and we've got guys who are in high school on the same team. And what's awesome is every one of those guys who we took to, were able to take to regionals, there were guys we wanted to take that we couldn't because we can only take, 26. So guys that we were able to take, or every single guy that we took was able to play in that game to go. And that's incredibly important, I think, for our success. And having those different backgrounds can kind of be weird, but like I said earlier, it's the right guys, right? It's the right people in the right spots, and having that team culture of buying in and having fun, and we really play for each other, right? That's the point. Is you're friends, you're teammates, you play for each other, you win for each other, and I think that really got us there. Everybody bought in the right way, and so no matter how old you are on the team, if you're a Cody or a Hilka, those guys are older. You got high schoolers, and they all just put any ego aside and it's just so sick to see those guys all come together and play. And I think it became a strength over the course of the season is that variety of backgrounds. Everyone was able to kind of build off of that together.
Tell us more about the game to go. Was it back and forth? Did you hold a lead early and hang on? What was what drove your success in the game?
Yeah, it was a tight game. We let's see, I think I don't know if my numbers are exactly right, but I do know that they got one break on us. We got 2 breaks on them, and that was it, right? It was a very tight game. Like I said, they're a well-oiled machine. They're a really good team. I think they ended up, they showed that against Sockeye later on, that they know how to just go out there and play their game and regardless of any other factors, really perform well. So shout out to them for that. They're a very good team. But like I said, I think our O-line was so consistent. I think there were 3 turns from our O-line that whole game. And only one ended up being a break. We only got 2 breaks, but that's what we needed. And so it was pretty tense. I think, we went up 1, they got 1 back, and then we went up another 1. So a little bit back and forth, super tight, and we were able to just kind of hold that out through the end of the game.
Is this the University of Oregon DNA in this team? Like I feel like these Eugene teams, amazing offenses always, and like can win games with only 2 breaks. And I feel like I've seen that in college, and obviously a lot of these guys on your team are Ego alums, or maybe current players, some of them. So is that, you think that's part of the story here for this team?
I think that definitely is part of it. I went to OSU, so I don't want to, I don't be too friendly to those guys, but no, they definitely can really tighten it up and really perform and really execute that offense well. Finding that right balance of being aggressive, but also kind of conservative with the disc, cherishing what you got. And we, like you said, our O-line is a lot of U of O guys. There's some OSU guys, and there's, like I said, Scott, who's from California. So I think having that variety of backgrounds means you do have that really awesome offensive execution, that kind of Oregon legacy, like you said. But we've got some dogs out there playing defense, creating that pressure against really good teams that don't give up a lot of turns, like Sockeye. Or I guess Sockeye too, but I was thinking of Furious as well. There's just they do their game really well, so it was really awesome to be able to get what we needed against them. And like you said, that offense just executed perfectly. So
I think maybe it's evaded like a casual fans notice, but I feel like Oregon's really been on the up. You know, you're going to be sending 2 teams in the men's division. You had a really competitive team in the mixed division this year in club. Obviously, Schwa has been one of the top women's teams. You got youth programs that are playing really well. In addition to the Oregon teams in college, you got Oregon State's been playing well. You got strong D3 programs. Like, what has been what's been in the water in Oregon that's helped make the Ultimate so strong there, and has it helped Darkstar?
Yeah, I think it has helped us, you know, because we have guys who are from Eugene, we have guys who live in Corvallis, we have guys who live in Portland. We have a guy moved halfway through the season up to Seattle and still comes down. It's so we're not the biggest team in the world, but throughout Oregon, we do have a draw from a variety of places. And I think in the past, you'd see that the kind of hubs for Ultimate, it was really Eugene, right? That was the hub for Ultimate. And I think Portland's scene has grown. There's some high schools have been putting out players who can really compete well, and we've been benefiting from some of those younger guys. Obviously, I love OSU. Corvallis has that scene around OSU, so I would say that it's a lot of time that the youth development would be in Seattle here on the West Coast, or at least the Northwest, and we've seen Oregon kind of take back some of those younger players, and those guys stick around and play in Oregon. They don't all go to U of O anymore. We got great recruiting classes at OSU. Portland schools, like you said, the D3 schools, there's some awesome kind of homegrown growth there in Portland as well. So it's really cool to see that spread throughout Oregon and not be kind of one local place. So, I couldn't really tell you exactly why, but there's a great legacy being built. There's some really cool older guys who are giving back to the community. Some of those guys play on Rhino, so it's cool to see them. We like those guys, even though it gets competitive. So, Timmy Person is the person that came to mind. He's done an awesome job of kind of fostering giving back to that community, I guess is the best way to put that. But yeah, we've got some good growth going, I think.
It's, especially for people who are not deeply following the club season, they're going to look at this results and they're going to see Sockeye didn't make nationals. They're going to be like, excuse me? I mean, we're talking about a team that has amazing legacy, multiple national championships, and is basically locked to make nationals, and now they're not going. Yeah. Why? How is Darkstar going and Sockeye not?
It's a good question. I think Sockeye will be all right in the grand scheme of things for sure. They, like you said, it's not like they're really going anywhere. They'll definitely be all right. I mean, they have Trent Dillon he's a great player. I have a lot of respect for that guy. He's a good leader as well, and they have a lot of young guys. So I think they're not going anywhere. We're going to have to beat them next year, right? They're going to be another team to play against. As for how it's us, I think that, like I said, we've been working towards it. We've been getting closer and closer results against teams like them, teams like Furious, and we just we put it together at the right time, at the same time that, they lost a couple guys, but like I said, they'll be all right. I'm not too worried about them.
Last question for me, and it's a classic one for a team in your situation. What are the goals going into nationals? I mean, you talked about at the beginning of the season, the team knew you could be good. You knew this was a point you could get to. You achieve it with pass the grade with flying colors. What are Darkstar's goals going into nationals?
Yeah, I mean, it's not exactly I didn't think we'd make it this far situation, but it is the type of thing where I think we definitely, our goal was to make nationals, and that was what we really set out to do. Now that we're here, it's really about us, I think. I can't speak for every single individual's personal goals. I think as a team, we want to go out there and we want to show, like you said, that we've had this growth, that Oregon and Darkstar specifically have really put a lot of great work together. And, we want to show who we are, what kind of team we are, and we want to have fun with our buds. And, we'll be in sunny San Diego with 25 of our best friends. So we're going to have a good time. We are going to compete. We're hoping to win the games that we get handed, that we have the opportunity to, and it'll be awesome to play just the elite teams that we don't always get to play. So I definitely have some personal goals in terms of matching up with some guys, going playing well against the other teams, and we're just going to have the best time. That's the idea, I think. So
awesome, Dan. Well, congratulations to you and the rest of Darkstar on qualifying, and we'll see you in San Diego.
Yeah, thank you, man. The last thing I want to do, if I can, real quick, I just want to shout out our team sponsor because they really helped us out. It's Nailed It Construction. We got them on our jerseys, and if you're in Portland and you need like a roof built or something, I don't know what they do, then hit them up. They're great people, and so I want to shout them out. But maybe we can get some more sponsors next year and we'll have an easier time affording nationals because it's an expensive tournament. So we're doing our best though.
Good stuff. All right, Dan.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys.
Thanks for joining us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Deep Look. Keith, couple awesome interviews. I just can't get over the fact that Darkstar threw away an opportunity what was that, 5 years ago? And then now they're like, yeah, we're doing it. But you can tell they still keep that countercultural vibe going.
I actually had forgotten about that incident until it was brought up on Twitter. I've apologized to the person who I'm not crediting for bringing it back up, but hilarious to be reminded that they actually just straight up phoned it in for a point.
So let's take a look at where things stand in our picks contest. Very, very close. Keith has 68 points, and me and the subs have 67 points. Wow.
Yeah, so the scoring system this year, I don't think that we've done this before, but I've always trying to figure out what's the right way to do this. Basically, if you got the winner correct of the region, you got 3 points. If you got a team correct that qualified, you got 1 point, and you got 2 points if they were not the winner, but they were in the correct placement.
Okay.
So you get a bonus point for getting the place right, and you get another bonus point if you got the winner of the tournament right.
All right, makes sense. Any standout situations around the country where picks were particularly good or bad?
Well, let's see. Charlie, you nailed there's one region where you nailed it in a big way. That was a nice score for you. Cuz I got Great Lakes mixed right. The subscribers got Northwest Women's right. That was one where we had kind of a toss-up situation. You nailed Northeast Women's. You got Brute Squad, Bent Sixers in order, while I only got 3 total points from that entire region. I didn't get a single team in the right spot. So that was a big swing for you. So yeah, there were mixed results. You didn't have Traffic winning the Northwest Women's, while the subscribers and I did. That was another point of difference, and we both had the subscribers and I had Ring winning the Southeast Men's. You had Chain. So you picked up points some places, and I feel like the subscribers and I were often more aligned. But yeah, that it was kind of all over the place. There isn't a specific spot, I would say.
It's all going to come down to this weekend.
Yeah.
Reminder, I have Truck Stop, and everybody has Truck Stop and Vault in that order. I have Amp and Loco. Keith and the subscribers have Amp and Rally. And then we all have Scandal, Parcha, Grit in that order. And if you want our analysis of Mid-Atlantic, check out our episode from last week. We now turn our attention to the North Central. 1 bid men's, 1 bid women's, 2 bids in the mixed division. Keith, where's your head at here? Let's start with the most interesting, I think, which is the men's division, where it feels completely wide open as to who could win this thing.
Does it feel completely wide open? Does it, Charlie? Or is General Strike about to come through on the warpath and support what's going to be my pick of them? I certainly hope that's the way that works out. But in reality, yeah, this one could be messy. It doesn't necessarily feel like any of these teams are so obviously better than the other. And when you get a bunch of teams that are in the mix, that can lead to weird upsets. A team loses a game in pool play or early in the bracket, and that throws everything out of whack. And you end up with 2 teams that look at Great Lakes. You get Omen and Machine matching up at quarters when we thought there would be 2 teams meeting up in the finals. Could we see something like that here? That's definitely possible. Wild to see Sub-Zero as the 5 seed. That's how.
Seed.
Didn't we feel like they were back at the beginning of this year? Were we Sub-Zero's right at the ship? They're back on course.
That's wild. It is wild. And look, General Strike is the 3 seed, Keith.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the seeding here. The 1 seed in this tournament Lunar from St. Louis. The 2 seed is Mad Men out of Madison. Then General Strike. Then Mallard, Sub-Zero. And I mean, what's the chances that like Smokestack from Kansas City wins this region? I feel like the potential winner here could come all the way down to like the 8 seed. I mean, maybe that's crazy, but it just feels that wide open.
Yeah, I mean, it does feel like if you get hot, you could win this thing. Everybody's going to walk in feeling like they have a chance, I'm pretty sure. And I've heard a little bit of buzz about Lunar. I don't really know necessarily why. Like they are undefeated this year. They haven't lost a single game. They have not lost. And that includes beating a lot of the teams that they're going to have to beat if they want to get here. But not most of the top end teams. They do have a win over Beacon, 13-7. That looks a lot better than it did before this past weekend. But yeah, there are no results against Sub-Zero, against General Strike. So you wonder how fragile are these results really. This is going to be a tricky one, but I'm sticking with General Strike. They're the team I think that has the best evidence that they could be really good. So maybe we should be worried about Canadian Ultimate in general. maybe their success at Canadian Nationals is not worth as much salt as it was. The exchange rate,
very interesting.
Exchange rate's changing.
So where are you going, Keith? Are you taking Strike?
I'm sticking with Strike.
When push comes to shove, I just think, and until like today, I was going to pick General Strike.
Oh my gosh, no! Because I was thinking about switching. No, now
I'm going to do it, and I'm going to take Sub-Zero.
Damn it!
Listen,
why didn't I do it first?
Here's the thing, okay? Everyone's going to look at the Mallard loss from sectionals and be like, "Oh my gosh, they're screwed," and maybe they are screwed. It's possible, but when I look at the roster, Keith, I cannot like Will Brandt, Colin Berry, like Leo Sovel Fernandez, Paul Krennick, Tristan Vandemortel. I just watched a bunch of these dudes balling out in the AUDL. Tell me how this team is not going to win. They have more talent than the other teams they're going to play this weekend. They do. Like, let Paul Krennick cook. Okay, I'm back on the Sub-Zero train. I'm probably going to get burned, but there's too much talent on this team. They're going to pull it together. They're going to run their top guys, and they're going to win. That's what I think.
Where's Mallard at? You know what I'm saying? We got to talk our.
They can win. Listen, I don't pick Sub-Zero with strong conviction.
Fair.
Mallard could win. Strike could win. Lunar could win. Sub-Zero could win. I mean, I picked Mad Men in our subscriber bonus upset draft, and that's because I think that like they have a decent chance to win too. They won last year.
Yeah, and Sub-Zero, if you take away CUC, like Sub-Zero has the most impressive result of anybody in the field, 13-12 over Vault at the Elite Select Challenge.
They beat Omen.
They got kind of dogged mostly by the really strong teams, including by Sakai, which that's not as good anymore. But they also lost to Mad Men earlier in the year, so like Mad Men's in the mix. There's no way to have conviction about one of these teams. I wish I had picked Sub-Zero before you. Now I can't. I can't switch. I can't copy you.
You can't switch.
I can't.
No, you can't. No, you can't.
I could maybe switch to Mad Men, but I definitely can't switch to Sub-Zero. This will
all right. Let's go. Let's go to the mixed division. Top seeds: Dragon Thrust number 1, Noise number 2, Kansas City United number 3, Impact number 4, and on down. They're doing straight bracket, which is fun. So it's double elim. Look, I don't think I need to overthink this one. I mean, it's for me, it's going to be Dragon Thrust and Noise, and it's just a question of what order they're going to play in. I got to take Dragon, I think. I mean, they just whomped Noise 15-9 at Pro Champs. And I'm kind of like back on Dragon Thrust being good after they had just a terrible start at the US Open. But they looked awesome at Pro Champs. So give me them and Noise to qualify. I just don't think there's any other teams in this region that are talented enough to beat those top 2.
Yeah, if this were a region where like one of these two teams looked a little more flawed, I'd feel differently. I think that the challenger level teams are as good as the other challenger level teams we've seen in other regions. Those top select level game to go kind of teams when you look at KCU and Impact. But I think Dragon Thrust and Noise are just like a cut above, and so I'm not too worried about it. And because of the head-to-head result, I think it's pretty straightforward who to pick first. Not to say that it's impossible for Noise to win, but I think sensibly you have to go with Dragon Thrust.
Okay, Keith, I have breaking news for you.
Oh, break some news.
And it's appropriate because we're in the North Central right now. Are you ready for this? Damian Lillard to the Bucks.
Wait, like actually happening?
I just got a text.
Or more trade rumors?
I have not yet confirmed. I got to go to Woj. I don't know what's going on right now, but that's what I just heard in a text message. And let's see. Lillard goes Milwaukee as part of a 3-team deal with Drew Holiday, DeAndre Ayton, Tumani Kamara, a 2029 unprotected. I'm not going this deep down the NBA rabbit hole.
Dylan
But
DeClerc is in this deal, I think.
It's done. Dylan DeClerc in the deal. Wow. Keith, would the Milwaukee Bucks, if they played in the men's division at North Central Regionals, advance to nationals?
Yeah, 100%.
They don't get to practice. They don't
get to practice.
Find out. No, you tell them today they're playing, and that's what they have preparation time wise.
Yes,
you tell them the rules.
They'd make it. They need. They would lose like their first 2 games, and then just like then they'd figure some stuff out, and they'd be like, oh wait, one person would figure out how to huck, and just like Giannis is both the fastest, tallest person. Like, imagine how much field he would take up in the cup. He's like a human cup by himself. Just one person cup, 6 people in the rest of your layers of your zone.
As long as Giannis can read the disc, he would not be stoppable.
He would have so much room for error to mess up reading the disc.
For the first time in history, using the word unstoppable about an Ultimate player would be accurate.
And what's ridiculous is there were, to us, like, yeah, Giannis would be totally unstoppable. They'd have like 6 other people who felt the same as Giannis to us, like comparable to us. Their other power forwards, are gonna feel like trying to cover Giannis. When Marjan Beauchamp runs past you and skies everybody, you're like, oh wait, there are 12 of these people.
Wow. So the Suns get Yusuf Nurkic and the Blazers get DeAndre Ayton.
Big shakeup.
Crazy.
Another time just to wish we had trades in Club Ultimate or any Ultimate.
Really. That'd be amazing. All right. We go to the women's division. Minneapolis Pop is your top seed. Heist, the 2. Look, Keith, this is Pop's region. Come on.
Yeah, I gotta go with Pop until we see some other evidence. Otherwise, like, none of these other teams have done anything impressive to like get me excited about them. Like, I don't think Pop is some world beater, but they've made a habit of dominating the region lately. So let's just keep it rolling.
I really don't have much else to add. I mean, Heist is the 2 seed, and they're just not a great team. I mean, Pop has also not had amazing results this year. I mean, they've been thumped by the good teams, but I still think they're the best team in this region.
Yeah, we're bank it.
All right, so those picks are in. Keith, do we have the subscriber picks?
I have to come back to our Discord because I foolishly had to look at the NBA Discord just to know what was good. I mean, this is monumental. This is like a guy who could be one of the 10 best players in the league going to a team that just had one of the worst playoff exits I've ever seen. Oh my God, that was so embarrassing last year. But yeah, we put up the subscriber picks this morning. So folks, or not this morning, but a few hours ago. So people had a chance to get in. Let's see. In mixed, the subscribers are predictably going with Dragon Thrust 1 and Noise 2. A couple of other votes. So not even the next 3 seeds picked on that front. Not a single vote against the Pop unanimously selected in the women's division by the subscribers. And the subscribers, Charlie, in the men's division, who do you think they're picked? Who do you guess the subscriber picked?
Gosh, I'm going to guess they went with Strike. That feels like the consensus favorite. The
subscribers are going with Minneapolis Sub-Zero. Then they have Strike and Lunar very, very close battle for second. But the subscribers will enter in Sub-Zero as their picks. So maybe it's good that there's some differentiation, given that there are not a lot of points of difference left to decide this very close matchup.
Very, very exciting. So there we go. Can the subscribers win? Do they have enough differentiation to win?
Only I think
If Sub wins.
Yeah, I think they need Sub to win, and then they need Rally to win. If Rally makes it and Sub makes it, I think the subscribers will win. You're on Loco and Sub, right. And I'm on Rally and Strike. It's gonna come down to that.
Mark Lloyd about to go just complete beast mode and put the team on his back, though. Maybe. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this weekend's. Yes. We'll call it this weekend's preview. And that's this week's Deep Look. More live action coming your way this weekend. Stay tuned for details, but we will have broadcasts coming from both North Central and Mid-Atlantic on Sunday as we see the final teams qualifying for the national championships. And Keith, it was quite the weekend with Field Pass. 6 regions covered on Field Pass from regionals for the very first time. And what a way to experience the day of that is Super Sunday.
No, you've never seen anything like it. I've wished there were 2 of me so that I could both commentate it and watch it. But alas, all I could do is participate basically at this point.
All right. Well, if you have feedback on the Field Pass broadcast or anything else that we're doing at the website or on Deep Look, shoot us an email. deeplook@multiworld.com, @deeplookpod on Twitter. And we roll into the next phase of the season as we get the final teams qualifying for nationals. And we'll start to break it all down. We're going to get pools next week as they do the random draw on Tuesday, and it's going to be live in some capacity. So stay tuned for details about that as well.
Yeah, and I think we'll probably be taking some mailbag questions next week. No question of the week today. We answered a lot of questions in our sub bonus, but I think we'll take a mailbag question a couple next week as part of our post regionals breakdown.
For Keith, I'm Charlie saying so long. We'll talk to you next week right here on Deep Look.